So my name is Phil Sparrow at KRCS, an Apple Authorized Education Specialist. And firstly, before we get started, just the housekeeping. Don't be shy to ask any questions if you have any. You've got two ways of doing so, or if you just want to speak up and enthuse about what you're seeing, or even debate it. You've got two ways. If you've got a YouTube account, you can use the live chat, which you've got here. You can also use the email address on the screen, which is edsales@krcs.co.uk. If you want to email there, I'll most likely answer questions afterwards or check that inbox just before the end as well. What I will do as well and put in the chat for you is I'm also on Twitter. So if you want to use Twitter to get in contact with me in the future, EDU Sparrow, that is my Twitter handle, should you wish to use that as well. Hopefully that's going to come through. So let's make it, and please do contribute if I've got anything where I want to discuss and you want to have a chat with me. Please just make sure you are fully discussing with that. But without further ado, we're going to get a start. So this is going to be 30 to 45 minutes, this webinar, depending on how long we go on for. Your time is precious, as is everyone's. So the agenda is to go brief introductions, which we're already midway through. We're flying. Talking generally, what is coding? Because it's very abstract to most people. Generally, people think of coding in very general, abstract ways, and not actually thinking what is it when we're teaching in the curriculum in the real world. We're then talking about the resources that we as teachers can use to actually plan, prepare, and teach and assess this as well. And then we'll be looking into the Swift Playground app itself. And then we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end and just thinking about what we've done. So let's get started. Very briefly, for 30 seconds, who's talking to you? My name's Phil Sparrow, working at KRCS. In the past, I've been a primary school class teacher, one-to-one assistant, HLTA. I have special needs experience, also with children with emotional issues, and also working in children's mental health. I've been an IT coordinator as well. Essentially, I have done the job that I am now wanting to help. I'm wanting to help teachers, and I feel I'm equipped to do so with my experience. KRCS, all you need to know about us is that we are one of Apple's authorized education specialists, which means that we are one of few people in the country who are authorized by Apple to support you with your educational needs in schools, or you as an individual with places like high street stores. And we also support schools with the technical aspect of things as well, if you'd like to. You can always come back to this later and just look down all these acronyms I'm throwing at you and have a look later. But without further ado, my name is Phil Sparrow. Let's get into this. So, firstly, think about what is coding, okay? So, coding is how technology communicates with humans. Technology talks in a very yes or no language. We call this binary code. So this would normally look like a 1 or a 0. So if a machine was to write code to us, it might look a little bit like this. This is binary and 1s and 0s, and this is going to be a string of code. It might be some instructions. Who are we to know as humans? We can't read this. And just a disclaimer that I am no coding extraordinaire, but I am able to share my understanding with you, just like you'd be able to share your understanding with students as well. But what is coding when we're teaching it? Because we don't teach children in primary schools or secondary schools to write in binary necessarily. This isn't what's on the curriculum. So what is coding that we might have seen? You might have heard of the languages like Python or Java, or you might have even heard of Swift before. Swift is a language for coding. What coding is it's the middle ground. It's not all these 1s and 0s. We don't write like this. Instead, coding is instructions that technology understands. It's sort of like a middle ground between these 1s and 0s in our English language. It's a translator between the two languages. So we can see a line of Swift code now. So you can see this is a little bit more we're familiar with. If is blocked, turn around. We can almost make sense of this ourselves. If I was blocked as a human, I'm in front of a wall. If I'm blocked, what do? I'll turn around and go in another direction. This kind of code, this kind of structure is the little translator that might transform into some 0s and 1s for the computers, machines, phones, whatever it might be. This is what we're teaching children. We are teaching children to communicate with technology, which is a vital skill for their present and for their future. It's something that's been evolving rapidly over the last 5, 10, 15 years to a point now where it is now in the primary curriculum at least as well. So let's look at what coding is currently, or not currently, but what coding has been in the past and something you might have seen. And we're not going to watch all of this, but I just want to talk through. This is what I call the jam sandwich lesson. The jam sandwich lesson is a really good introduction to coding to get children used to the idea of instructions, and that we are executing instructions, and we need to be accurate in our instruction giving. So we can see here, I'm going to just turn this down slightly. What's happening here is that this teacher has all the ingredients in front of him to make a jam sandwich. And the children are giving him very general instructions, saying, put the knife in there. Then, you can hear him now saying scoop butter. Spread it on the bread. And you can see here that the bread is going everywhere and he's making a mess, and it's quite comical. Now, the idea of this, and I'm going to turn off the volume whilst I talk over this, the idea of this is that the children go, my instructions weren't specific enough. I need to work out how to make them better. I might say, scoop the butter and then hold the bread whilst you spread the butter on the bread so that it doesn't go everywhere. This is a common sort of debugging process or problem-solving process that children, and even coders as adults, might have to work out in order to correct their code if this was their job in the future. This is a very good sort of hands-on introduction that a lot of teachers have done over the years to introduce their class to coding. But at this point, the children aren't actually writing any code. They're just understanding code as a concept. So I highly advise for you to look up the jam sandwich lesson on the internet. It might be something you do yourself in your classroom tomorrow or on Friday, just to sort of get your class thinking about instructions and how precise they need to be, and that machines talk like this as well. But we'll move on from our jam sandwich lesson because we want to talk about coding and Swift Playgrounds. So Swift Playgrounds, let's talk about that. Swift Playgrounds is a sort of a curriculum provided by Apple that helps teach the essential modern coding skills to many schools, colleges, universities across the world. Swift is the language that this course uses, and there are 3 things we're going to look into today where you'll hopefully be able to take this workshop away, and this will be recorded and it will be live hopefully by the end of the week for you on YouTube to watch again, and I will send out an email with this link. But we're going to be looking at the Apple Teacher web platform, where you'll be able to get started with your own sort of CPD. So if you're not sure how to use an iPad, not sure how to use a Mac, and you're not that fluent, there's a lot of self-guided CPD at your own pace to go through the basics of using iPad and Mac in education. Also, you'll be able to get started with Swift Playgrounds because there is an introductory section here saying, get started with Swift Playgrounds, here's all the resources you need to use. We're then going to look at the Swift Playgrounds guides. Think about whenever you've taught from a scheme of work. It might have been taught for writing. It might have been a math scheme of work. Swift Playgrounds guides are very much like a scheme of work, and they help support you with your short-term and your medium-term planning. And we're going to have a brief look at what these look like. I'm not going to read these to you. That's not what we're here for. I'm here to give you a very brief glimpse at the key features of these and how they can support you during your PPA. And then we're going to look at Swift Playgrounds itself. We're going to look at a session in action. I'm going to sort of walk you through 1 or 2 activities that will be the main activity of your lessons with your students. So we're going to take a brief look there. So let's make a start. We're going to swap over now we're going to go to our first step, which is the Apple Teacher Program. So we're going to go to Safari, and here we've logged into the Apple Teacher Program. I've logged in here. This is appleteacher.apple.com. You can see that URL at the top. And this looks quite friendly. You can see a lot of things that catch the eye here. Your Apple Teacher journey. We've got support for remote learning near the bottom left. Foundational skills. Your foundational skills are where you're going to learn all your basic iPad and Mac skills, whether this is how to create PowerPoints, whether this is how to do drawings, whether this is how to put audio recordings in your Pages documents. There's loads of things, even music, which we're going to cover tomorrow in a workshop as well. Plenty of things. But again, we are here for coding. So I'm going to, in the top right corner, click on the search, and I'm going to type in everyone can code. And you can see here there are loads and loads of resources. And I can see the ones here that I've already viewed. I want the Everyone Can Code resources. Everyone Can Code is the name of the initiative that Apple like to use, as well as Everyone Can Create. These are 2 initiatives from Apple that actually promote how Apple devices can be used widely across education and in the creative industry. And Everyone Can Code is where we're going to go. We're going to click here and see what it says. So let's have a look. Everyone Can Code. Brilliant. Let's have a look. I'm going to scroll down slightly and as a teacher see what this provides me on my PPA. Firstly, it shows us about the guides. Awesome. So this means I can download these guides from the Apple Bookstore on macOS, iOS, or iPadOS, and I'll be able to get basically my schemes of work that can help support me. The orange ones are the student guides and the white ones are the teacher guides. They are essentially the same, but obviously one is friendly for one audience and one is for the other, should you want your students to do some self-directed learning maybe. Scroll down a bit more to see what's inside them. We've got talking about sample lessons, and these we're going to go through shortly when we look through the guides, but it's showing you each step of the lesson and how they might look. Then we go to guides and resources. So when you want to download these guides, you've got your handy links just here. Get the guides, download the guide, and it's showing you where to get the apps as well. Again, we're going to look into this shortly. And then you've got your quick start guide. If you need to maybe make a quick start guide to get all of your staff started on Swift Playgrounds, or maybe just for yourself, you just want to get to the quick bit and you need one guide to get you started. Here's your quick start guide to get you started on Swift Playgrounds. And finally, I feel this is a really important bit in the Apple Teacher Center and just in general. Apple is very active on Twitter. I don't mean Apple themselves, I mean the community of educators that actually use Apple products. You can see we've got the hashtags everyone can code, hashtag everyone can create, hashtag Apple EDU chat or EduChat. We've even got ADE, Apple Distinguished Educator 2019. There is loads here, all these people networking. Twitter is a huge network for teachers, and if you do a coding lesson with Apple products, or even if you do a creative lesson with Apple products, you can share and celebrate it here, or even look up inspiration on Twitter using these hashtags. Apple also do a Q&A style session for teachers and on Tuesdays as well, called the Apple EDU chat. You might want to join in with. I believe it's at 6 or 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. But without further ado, this has been the Apple Teacher Center, and what I'm just going to do is scroll back up just to briefly show you, very briefly, get these guides in your head. These are the two sort of guides you want. We're going to be looking at today, there are two different types of Swift to do with children. There is Swift Adventures and there are Swift Puzzles. We're going to be doing Swift Puzzles, which is generally for Key Stage 2 children. It is more aimed at Year 5 and Year 6, but in my opinion, you can guide a Year 4 class through this as well, if you know your own class, which we all do, of course. And then Swift Adventures is more for Key Stage 1 curriculum. We're going to be looking at puzzles today because I feel it sort of illustrates really clearly what Apple is offering to us in general. So now we're going to go and look inside the Everyone Can Code Puzzles teacher and student guides. So let's have a look, shall we? Now, you'll see here I've got a variety of pages for us to look through. Do not worry, I'm not going to read all these pages to you. That is not what we want. I'm going to talk about briefly the features of them and what we're looking for as teachers to get us started. So we've already done the first step of preparing our lesson. We've got somewhere to get our resources, the Apple Teacher Center. Now how do we use these resources in our PPA or in our other planning time? So here it tells us about the lessons and tells us about this scheme of work, and you can see the 4 colored circles: learn, try, apply, and connect. These all show us basically the elements of our learning that we're used to. This shows us about our beginnings, our plenaries, our starters, our main activities, maybe that sort of mini activity between the starter and the main learning. It's kind of showing you how they're signposted in the Apples in these guides. Next, and this is one I absolutely love for medium and long-term planning. Essentially, if you see on the right, we've got this blue table. This is showing you the name of each section in Swift Playgrounds, or if you will, each unit of work. For example, you would think of teaching children paragraphs in literacy as a unit of work, and you would hope that unit of work lasts you for a week to 2 weeks. Commands is saying 3 classes. Now, this might be a slight bit Americanized, but you can think with your own children, once you've done the first lesson, you'll think, oh no, commands is going to last me 4 to 5 days, that's brilliant. Or it's only going to last them 2 because they're whizzes at this. This is the idea of the pacing guide in these documents for you to think about how long you spend on each section. You're not alone, Apple have thought of this already. Then if we keep moving through, getting started, it tells you basically what playbooks to download. Now, I'm talking about playbooks and you're thinking, what are those? So the app is Swift Playgrounds, and the document, if you will, that your children will be working from is called a playbook. And so you download Learn to Code 1, the orange one you can see on the screen, is what we're going to be using today, and that is sort of the beginning playbook. which I've been through myself and learned to code too. My children absolutely loved it. But here it's just showing you all the playbooks you might want to download and delve into. Now let's actually get into what it looked like as a teacher. This is from the teacher guide, and this is the first page of the first unit of work, essentially, from commands. Now, basically what you can see here in the bullet points is some objectives, which may match up to parts of the national curriculum for ourselves, and also key vocabulary with word walls, as well as things in how we word our learning objectives as well, or by the end of the lessons, whatever we might call them. So this is really handy just for kind of getting those objectives out of the way and getting the context of your lesson as a teacher. Next, we have the introductory part, so the starter of our lesson, if you will. And this is showing you at the top, on the top left, it says teacher, so we know it's the teacher guide. Asking us to think about our prior knowledge, maybe giving us an activity such as a think, pair, share, and then it's giving us an idea of how to use our vocabulary wall in our teaching. Again, this is really breaking it down for you on a short-term planning level. Then if we look at a page from the student guide, the students during the starter have an activity called hide and seek. And if you wanted the children to guide their own learning, for example, or you wanted to refer them to the activity book as to how to do their activity, or you could even look yourself as a teacher to what this activity actually is, here's the activity for the starter and it relates it to coding. So hide and seek, hiding a small object, creating directions to find the object, swap the instructions and see if they can still find the object. This is sort of checking the clarity of coding and if the children have programmed, coded the correct instructions and are they articulate enough. A bit like the jam sandwich lesson. We've then got some good activity reflections. Activity reflections being vital for assessment for learning, whether that's going to be your verbal AFL, whether you're going to make them write it down. There's so much you can do with this. Don't just take it as gospel, but look at it and think, how can I mold this for my class? Then the next bit in a teacher guide, there's a lot here, but essentially this is telling you how you might deliver your main input, or breaking down the activity the children are going to be doing. This is the try part, or the main activity, as I like to see it. So this will go through and take you more or less step by step the elements that you're teaching your children. Then we've got the connect sections. I really like the connect sections. They're the plenaries. And often when I was teaching, you'd always think of your plenary would be that bit of 5 minutes on the end or the 10 minutes. And sometimes we wouldn't always get times for those plenaries. Here in the plenary, asking us to connect our knowledge with what we've learned today with other things in the world around us. So for example, reflecting about how many objects do you think use commands in the world? So thinking with children and the technology around them, for example, that microwave they've used, how does that use coding? That the bus that they caught the other day, and then when they look at the bus timetable, what code makes that bus timetable work? Or the card machine when they went shopping at Sainsbury's with mum last week. There's plenty of things to think about here. These connections are really important because this is what we want to do in other subject areas. Thinking, for example, this is a lot of critical thinking. Coding in general provides a lot of logical thinking in things such as maths. It's important to draw these contexts together so that children feel what they're learning is extremely important and relevant to their lives. Just how we teach children in maths that money is vital, because when you go to the shops, how are you going to work out your change or how much you need? Or if you need to communicate with somebody over long distances over the internet, you need to be able to write properly. You need to be able to read properly. The same with coding. If they want to communicate with machinery, if they want to work with machinery and technology in the future, learning why it's important is extremely important. And coding as a process, which we'll see later, has a lot of sort of logical thinking, executive processing as well. It's a really good problem-solving subjects that transfers across the curriculum. If we carry on, this is the teacher version of the Connect. So this might give you a bit more guidance as a teacher as to how you encourage your students to reflect. But I especially like the last area, engaging with the community, asking the community, not just the children, but it might be you put something on your community board. It might be you put something on the outside of your classroom door. It might be something you put in the homework. There's loads of things this can do. Now, the next couple of pages, I am not going to do for you. I'm not going to read through like I just have, but I just want to show you what the student guide looks like. I want you to think of the following. You are doing a coding lesson with most of your class, that you've got your children and you've got your lower ability children who you know you're going to have to guide through, maybe having your assistant with you. You've got most of your middle ability children you think will be able to manage with you. But then you've got your higher ability that are just going to fly through. You've just got that gifted and talented group. Here, we've got the student version of these guides, and you can see already it's much more friendly. The objectives aren't there, but it's still got the key vocabulary, and the language is not too complicated for these. If we then look at the try version, see how much more simple this is. I think year 5, year 6 children could definitely take themselves through these. Maybe you doing the first lesson or two with them, but then once they're introduced and familiarized with the coding guide, they'd certainly be able to give this a try themselves. Maybe in an after-school coding club as well. So this is what the guides look like inside of Swift Playgrounds, and hopefully these will look accessible to you during your PPA. Now, what we're going to do is the final but most exciting part of our workshop. We're going to go into Swift Playgrounds itself. Now, I am running Swift Playgrounds on a Mac. I'm running this on Mac OS, but this looks exactly the same on iPad. So, right now, got lots of things down the side, and you can see earlier on the documentation referred to commands. This is the commands unit of work, and right now we're on the introduction. So before we actually see the exciting part of this, I just want to show you the introduction. And we have a few slides like this at the start of every one of these units that give us and the children a really good contextual understanding of what they're about to learn, and they're not very long at all. Have you ever followed a recipe to bake something delicious? Or followed instructions to assemble something cool? You need to follow instructions in the correct order or you'll end up with something unexpected. Writing code allows you to create your own set of instructions for your device to carry out. Your goal is to figure out which instructions in which order will result in something great. You'll start by writing commands to move a character named Byte around a puzzle world performing tasks. Maybe collecting gems. Notice the mashed together words. Code is punctuated and spaced like human languages, but commands have no space between the words. Commands always end in parentheses. You'll see why later. So you can see how this is a very brief introduction as well. But let's start coding. So here we go. We've got the main interface here, and you can see already this is absolutely beautiful looking. A really high quality curriculum tool that's going to engage your children. But there's a lot going on here. So I'm having a look right now. So I've got in the top right corner, I've actually got background music, should I want to. It's a bit loud. I'm going to turn it off. But we've also got our character who makes some sound effects if we want to. When he's walking, when he's running, when he's collecting gems, you can hear him making a cheeky noise there. I'm going to turn his sound effects off though, because we don't want to look at that. We've got the chapters down here, which yes, our learners could by all means skip through, but they will do it in order with our guidance. We've got a written explanation of what we're going to do here, which we might guide our children through if we've got it on the screen together. Your character Byte loves to collect gems but can't do it alone. In this puzzle, you'll need to write swift commands to move Byte across the puzzle world to collect a gem. Look, so it gives us the steps of 1, 2, 3, which is quite easy for children to spot. You may want to use accessibility options as well. So if your children are not able readers, you could use something such as Speak Screen so that Speak Screen can read this to the children, which is brilliant. But I can see here it's got the blue click to enter code. I'm going to click it. I'm noticing two things straight away. I'm thinking, oh, it's got that flashing bit, so I've got to type some code in. And I'm kind of going from a child's perspective here. But we might not be teaching our children our code. And if we look near the bottom, we have got bits we can collect. We've got bits that we can tap that enter the code automatically, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to have a look here, and I'm looking at my character, and I'm thinking, Byte needs to get that gem. So what does he need to do? He's going to move forward once, move forward twice, move forward 3 times. I'm going to try that. So I'm going to click, move forward, move forward, move forward. Now, we've got this play button saying run my code. And I've also got a little speedometer just here that does something else as well. So we can run our code extremely quickly, or we can step through the code. I'm going to click step slowly, and this is one of my favorite things, and you'll see why. We've got a highlight, and it shows what code we're using and what's happening on the screen. This shows children what their code is really doing. Now, I've missed a bit. The gem's floating above his head, but it's not quite there yet. It's not quite there yet. So what do I need to do? He also needs to collect the gem. Right. I want to make my code go a bit faster this time. We're going to step through my code. Let's see what happens. It moves. He moves again. He moves again. And then he collects it. And we did it. Congratulations. We've written our first lines of Swift code. You can see this is an activity that your children would definitely get through absolutely beautifully. Byte performed the commands you wrote and did exactly what you asked in the order that you specified. So this is about ordering. You can imagine complex maths problems. For example, Timmy's got so many apples and needs to share them, but also takes them from the shop and has to pay 20p. These multi-step maths problems are very similar to coding and having to sequence what we're doing and think about the order. It helps make what is abstract number problems and makes it a bit more concrete. It's the same with this. Now you can see we've already done this issuing commands, and you can imagine this would take children a bit longer, and in the context of your lesson as well, this might take a bit longer. So when the pacing guide said that commands will take 3 lessons, you can see how they might get 1, 2, or 3 of these done a lesson. So doing 2 each, you're going to finish commands in 2 to 3 lessons. So it's about right, really, depending what else you do around it. Let's look at the next session. Or actually, yes, we will. We will do that first. So let's have a look at the next one. Adding a new command. Let's see how it builds on. Ooh, the map's a bit bigger this time. It's a little bit bigger. Interesting. I wonder what I'm going to do. What should we do? So again, we're thinking of our children and what they're learning. It says this puzzle is just like the last one, but Byte needs to turn left to reach the gem. So we're being given that extra step. Now, I'm feeling really adventurous because my teacher, Mr. Sparrow, said I could click the buttons down the bottom and it just writes the code for me. But I think I can write the code myself. So I'm going to write the code myself. And you can see that in the bottom in blue, there's actually a bit to auto-correct it if I've gone wrong or it wants to finish it off. So I'm going to plan out what Byte's going to do again. We're going to move forward once. We're going to move forward twice. And then he needs to turn left. Okay, so I'm going to move forward. And then he turns left. I'm going to check that's right, and I'm just going to run my code. Move forward once, move forward twice, then he's going to go left. Yep, I'm on the right track. He's got to move forward twice more, so we're going to do move forward and move forward. Just going to check that through again. I'm going to just check a hint, actually, because we get hints in the bottom right corner if we're stuck, if our teacher's busy, or if they've just helped us and we want to try and help ourselves. It says to reach the gem, Byte needs to move forward 2 tiles, then turn left, then move forward 2 more tiles. So they're giving us a hint as to what commands we're going to have to write. Then move forward. The move forward commands move Byte ahead only 1 tile. So it's re-explaining some important things. And command is written in blue and it identifies it as a key term. When you click it, it will show you the definition in the built-in macOS or iPadOS dictionary. So I've got my double move forwards. Let's check my code again now. I'm going to just double check him. Let's see how he goes. He's doing all right. I'm happy. I'm very happy. Right, yep, and then I just need to do the collect gem. Cool, let's just see if this works, and I think I'm golden. My teacher's asked me to do these 2. I've taken myself through them, and I'm mega, mega happy with myself. Pretty chuffed, actually. Did it live on stream and everything with no errors, and look, I'm getting some more praise, and it's telling me what I've learned and what knowledge I've built upon the second time. Now, the one thing here is if your children are working on macOS or on an iPad, you're thinking, how can I collect this as evidence? Am I going to have to get them to take a print screen? Am I going to have to get them? How am I going to do my assessment? What's the end of my learning journey look like? We've done the planning, we've done the input, we've done the main activity, but what does your assessment look like? Now, obviously, you could, if you really wanted to, you could ask them to take a print screen of this. This is going to be saved on the device that they're learning on. You could ask them to just take a screenshot on the iPad by pressing the home button and the lock button, or the volume up and the lock button, or they could do a screenshot on macOS with Command Shift and 3 or Command Shift and 4. But if you're using Apple devices in your school, and let's just say that you want to share wirelessly with your children, we click the share button in the top left. And in the top left, I'd get some options. Now, I don't think these options are appearing on stream right now, unfortunately. But when you get these options, it would show you that they can share the file and AirDrop with somebody nearby. They could send it in an email, or they could save it as a note as well. So it's lots of things to think about. But you can see here how this would work in a lesson as well. And it looks absolutely fantastic as well. And it's just fun enough, just engaging enough for children. And it's got so many resources around it. This is what I wanted to do today, was take you through and show you just how exciting this can be for children and how simple it is for teachers to access with all those resources. So just to recap, we've been on Swift Playground's app and we've done some learning together, as you can see on the screen now. We've been and looked through the teacher guides, so you can actually look at planning your lessons as well. And you can see, and then firstly, we also looked at the resources and where to get them from. So appleteacher.apple.com, and it's free for you to sign up, and you can use this from any device, your Windows laptop, your phone, wherever you want to use it, you'll be able to use this. So we've had a nice quick session. We're just over the half an hour mark, so we've done a nice quick webinar today, which is fab. But what I want you to think about, and I'm going to briefly open my emails to see if anyone has emailed in, I want you to just think about what you've learned. I also want you to think about how will today's workshop impact your use of iPad in the classroom. And then what are your next steps? Hopefully your next steps are to go on to Apple Teacher and also to download the Swift Playgrounds guides that you've seen today. And hopefully you'll think about teaching a lesson next week. And if any of you do, I'd love for you to email in. I'd love for you to email in or to tag me on Twitter with your lessons that you run. The next steps here, there are things that KRCS do to help schools. Now, essentially, what these three things are saying is that if you need help planning how to use iPad and Mac in your school, we can come in and help you plan those steps. If you need help molding your curriculum around iPad and Mac, we can come in and help mold your curriculum with you. If you need a bit more of a technical assessment because you're not sure if your Wi-Fi will support hundreds of iPads or even 3 iPads in your school, or if you've got that server that's just a pain in the bum and you don't know how to get it to work with Mac, we can help you with that. We're here every step of the way as one of Apple's authorized education specialists. But we have reached the end of the stream. I did promise it would be a nice, speedy one. Thank you so much for coming. My name's been Phil Sparrow, an Education Development Manager from KRCS. I am going to leave the stream on for just a few minutes. If you've got any questions, anything to say at all in the chat, you are more than welcome to. And I will be sitting here for just a few minutes. But if you want to, the email address is just there, edsales@krcs.co.uk. If you've got any questions about purchasing new devices for your school, making use of the ones you've already got, training, trade-in, whatever it might be, we're here to help. So thank you so much, and hopefully I will chat to some of you very soon.